and basically be a replica of how they are. وَلَن تَرْضَى عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُمْ. They will not be pleased with you until you become exactly like them and follow their path and follow their religion. It's always easy to mix and mingle and be exactly like them because you're swimming with the current. During the Khilafah of Uthman, he was the Caliph, and he had an opinion. He used to say that if you're performing pilgrimage and you're wearing your ihram, if you don't hunt yourself, and if you don't order the hunt, you're okay to eat the meat of the animal hunted. One day, as he was wearing his ihram, he was in Hajj, people offer food. He takes the bird, the cooked bird, and he said, صَيْدٌ لَمْ نَصَدْهُ وَلَمْ نَأْمُرْ بِهِ. It's something that we didn't hunt, and we didn't order anyone to hunt it. He just gave it to us. And he began eating with the rest of the people, his cohorts and his companions. When they finished eating, someone said, but Ali ibn Abi Talib disagrees with you. He says it's haram while you're performing pilgrimage to eat this kind of food. So Uthman said, go call Ali ibn Abi Talib. He's in Hajj, go call him. He called Ali ibn Abi Talib, he's summoned. He says to him, do you disagree with us? The Imam didn't address Uthman himself. He addressed his companions, the people that were there, that were the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, أُنْشِدُكُمْ بِاللَّهِ. I ask you in the name of God. Who was there and witnessed this incident when the Prophet, while he was performing his Hajj, they brought food to him from the site. Someone hunted a bird, cooked it, and offered it to the Prophet. But the Prophet said, نَحْنُ مُحْرِمُونَ, or إِنَّا مُحَرَّمٌ عَلَيْنَا. The Prophet said, we're deprived from this kind of food because we're wearing our ihram. Who was there? Who witnessed this incident? 12 people said, we did. He said, أُنْشِدُكُمْ بِاللَّهِ. Who was there when a group of people brought an egg of an emu to the Prophet? He said, إِنَّا مُحْرِمُونَ. We can't eat this kind of food. 12 people said, we did. But why didn't these people tell Uthman, tell the Caliph, that they were there when it happened? They saw the Prophet forbid people from eating this kind of food because they're wearing ihram. Why? Because they were swimming with the current. Why bother? Why protest? Why object? Be like everyone else. Eat like everyone else. Dress like everyone else. During the pagan era, before the Prophet was sent to mankind, everyone knew, due to the intrinsic values built in their souls, that burying people alive was bad. Everyone knew that adultery was bad. But in spite of their knowledge, because this was part of the norms of the society, they embraced these standards and norms. People didn't care. They used to bury the newborn if it was a girl, because for them, a girl brought shame. They used to bury the newborn. And this went against their intellect, against wisdom, against every religion. But they wanted to swim with the current and be like everyone else. They used to commit adultery to an extent that women used to brag about committing adultery. And when they committed adultery 100 times, they would raise a black flag over their house. And some women were called Dawat al-Rayat. They had many flags that were raised over their houses. And Hind, the mother of Muawiyah, was one of them. They bragged about committing adultery. And one day, after the Prophet was sent, Archangel Gabriel descends upon him. And he said to him that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you to ask Ja'far ibn Abi Talib of 3 values that he upheld during the Jahiliyyah, the pagan era, while everyone else was doing something else, was doing otherwise. So he summons Ja'far. There are 3 things that you used to do, others didn't. He said, yes. First of all, I never committed adultery. Why? Because I knew that if I commit adultery, I would be engaging in an illicit, forbidden act with someone that has a father, someone that has parents, and I don't want the same thing to be done to my daughter. إذا زنيت زني بأهلي. That's why I refrained from committing adultery. And I never lied, because this went against my nature. I don't want to lie, and I don't want anyone to lie to me. The third, I never worshipped an idol, because idols could never benefit us. So these things are intrinsic values people knew about, but because of the norms of the society, they chose to swim with the current and not care. During Uthman's time, Abu Dhar was very vocal about his loyalty to Amir al-Mu'mineen and to the household of the Prophet. And he was very vocal about protesting against the Caliph with regards to the corruption that was prevalent during his time. So, Uthman expelled Abu Dhar. He expelled him to Sham. But he never stopped from propagating and promoting the traditions with regards to the position of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the lofty status of the household of the Prophet. To an extent that Muawiyah sent a message to Uthman saying, take him back. Because the Lebanese today, when you ask them about their affiliation, about their religious sectarian affiliation, they would say, we're the Shi'as of Abu Dhar. It was because of Abu Dhar we became Shi'as. Abu Dhar was swimming against the current. It was very difficult. It meant deprivation for him. One day, Uthman sends one of his slaves to Abu Dhar. He gives him 2,000 dinars. He tells him that if Abu Dhar takes this money, I will free you, I will emancipate you. So he goes to Abu Dhar, says to him, take these 2,000 golden dinars. Abu Dhar says, this money, does it belong to the Caliph or to the nation? If it belongs to the Caliph, how did he accumulate this large amount of money? And if it belongs to the nation, then why is it that he's only given it to me and not to the rest of the general public? The guy begged him. He said, if you take it, Uthman will free me. He said, you'll be freed, but it will be on the expense of my slavery. I will be enslaved by Uthman. Because أحسن إلى من شئت تكن أميره. If you do a favor to someone, he'll be indebted to you for the rest of your life. This is something that I won't do. If you swim against the current, it means difficulties. It means challenges. It means hardships. It means deprivations. But sometimes because you adhere to certain principles and you don't want to give concessions, you don't want to make compromises to your faith, you cling to them, but it means you have to go through all these problems. During Muawiyah's reign, he launched a smearing campaign against Imam Ali alayhi salam. You all know that. He waged a war against him, but then after he became the supreme ruler, it was a different kind of smearing campaign. For example, one of the things that he did is blame Ali ibn Abi Talib for killing Uthman. And he hoisted the shirt of Uthman, they say Qamis Uthman, and said that it was Ali ibn Abi Talib and his followers that are responsible for the slaying of Uthman. So one of the things that he did was he informed his governors to forbid anyone from praising Ali ibn Abi Talib. And he said anyone that mentions a tradition praising Ali ibn Abi Talib will be deprived from the monthly allowance given to all Muslims. Later on, when tensions escalated, he said anyone that praises Ali ibn Abi Talib will be killed. And that's why no one dared to mention Ali ibn Abi Talib and praise Ali ibn Abi Talib in any way. That's why a famous Sunni scholar says that Ali ibn Abi Talib is a strange figure. Despite all the attacks against him, despite the ban that was imposed against him and his companions. No one was allowed to mention his hadith. All the traditions about Ali ibn Abi Talib are filling the horizon. تَمْلَأُ الْخَافِقَيْنِ. But then he took another step, Muawiyah. He said to his governors, anyone that mentions a hadith in favor of Uthman will be given extra, will be given gifts. So people began praising Uthman everywhere and all the time. And people began to fabricate traditions to praise Uthman, to get the gift, until the fabricated traditions about Uthman became overwhelming. Muawiyah sent a message to his governors, especially Ziyad ibn Abi, his governor in Kufa, saying to tell them to stop. I mean, it's impossible that the Prophet that only lived 23 years said 50 million ahadith about Uthman. That's impossible. Now begin to fabricate traditions praising Muawiyah. And everyone joined in. Everyone began to swim with the current. And very few people remained that were vocal against Muawiyah, like Hujr ibn Adi. He used to stand in the middle of the Jum'ah prayer, telling Ziyad ibn Abi, the governor of Muawiyah, how could you say that? Ali ibn Abi Talib was the companion of the Prophet and the closest person to the Prophet. But people don't usually care. People follow their interests, whatever that benefits them, even if it means they have to make concessions on the expense of their faith and their principles and their beliefs. One day Muawiyah says to his advisor, Amr ibn al-As, he says to him that I'm fearful. These people will one day realize that I'm not the righteous caliph. I was the enemy of the Prophet one day. I fought against the Prophet with my father Abu Sufyan. So I'm fearful that these people will know that this is a smearing campaign we're launching. I mean, he used to propagate the idea that Ali ibn Abi Talib never prayed. And even when they heard Amir al-Mu'minin was killed, they said, how did he die? People said to them that he was prostrating, he was doing sujood, then he was struck with a sword. So they said, did Ali ibn Abi Talib ever pray? So Muawiyah was telling his advisor Amr ibn al-As that people will eventually realize that what we're doing is wrong. They'll give their backs to us and join the ranks of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Amr ibn al-As said to him that don't worry. Most of the people, the majority of people, wait until someone tells them what to do. And they will follow anyone that instructs them. That's the mindset of the majority of people. He said, I'll prove it to you. He ascended on the pulpit. And then he said, oh people, I heard the Prophet say, anyone who eats onion will go to paradise. People rush towards the grocery store to buy onions. And then he told Muawiyah that I'll prove it once again. I mean, what kind of criteria is that? If you want to enter paradise, you have to eat onion? But this just tells you, it gives you a glimpse of the mentality of the majority of people. If that's the mainstream, then so be it. Then he said to the people that I heard the Prophet myself, saying that anyone who can touch the tip of his nose with his tongue will enter paradise. Suddenly, everyone became like cows trying to touch the tip of their nose with their tongue. So he began to laugh and he looked at Muawiyah to tell him about the stupidity of those people. He saw Muawiyah doing the same thing. So, people are usually like this. The Prophet of Islam says, Amir al-Mu'minin says, he once took Salman to the graveyard. He said to him, Ya Salman, an-nasu thalatha. People can be classified into three groups. Alimun Rabbani, the divine scholar, knowledgeable person. And there is a big difference between the world of academia and religious studies. With regards to the world of academia, it doesn't matter how pious you are. It doesn't matter whether you believe in the things you're studying or not. You could be a doctor and not believe in medicine. You can practice medicine and not believe in what you're practicing. But with regards to religion, it's different. You have to have piety to be able to absorb the religious doctrines. You have to follow the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before you can digest